As you know, right at the beginning, we were having people knocking on the doors within a week, actually, of those letters landing. And two men usually, well, they were all two men, actually, calling on people's doors to vulnerable elderly residents. And that wasn't good enough. They were challenged immediately on that, and they backed off a bit. Following on from that, we were looking at cable ploughing. And this seemed to us to be a viable and an alternative that was acceptable, I think, to everybody. Public meetings we had with our landowners confirmed that everybody was in favour. It was an unanimous decision there again. But even though they promised in May last year that they would be looking into the viability of cable ploughing, a year on, we're still waiting for those costings. We were promised again some 6 weeks ago that we would have this within 3 months. But in a meeting in Llanderfaelog, I was told, no, we didn't promise you that. But I was in that meeting, not on my own, with 3 other members of Llanarthony Group, and we were promised. So it just seems a catalogue, if I'm honest, a catalogue of broken promises all the way through. And they're not, I don't feel that they're taking cable ploughing as seriously as we are. We're giving them an option which would give them access onto landowners' fields, and they're not taking it up, and they're choosing not to take it up.
Well, my first experience has been nothing galvanises a local area like a threat like this. I used to live in Montgomeryshire up in Mid Wales, and probably 10 years ago now there was the threat of the Mid Wales Array, very similar problem of infrastructure connection going across some of the most beautiful areas of that county. And I've never known a subject before or since unite a county and a society and a community like that did. So I'm not remotely surprised when I drive up the main road from Carmarthenshire to here, to every other gateway has got a sign on it indicating, and you don't see that on any other topic.
I think the thing that has struck me most is just how mobilised the community is on this. And for me, as a potential representative, it's been incredibly important for me to have those conversations with local groups, making sure that I'm listening as much as possible and also advocating on their behalf. So we've been very lucky to be able to kind of bring decision makers and policy makers into the conversation. And I think moving forward, it's going to be critical for me as a potential member of Parliament to be able to continue advocating on behalf of the community to make sure that their views are heard. Community consent is crucial in matters such as this. So making sure that we hammer home that message to those who are in positions of power, I think, is incredibly important. I think it's really important that we look at matters holistically, and there might well be instances where pylons in particular circumstances in cities and that kind of thing might be appropriate. I think it's very clear here in the beautiful Towy Valley that is not the way forward for us. And as mentioned, we are lucky that we have that planning policy in place already, where there is that preference for undergrounding here, which I think is something that would be far better suited to the area that we're talking about.
Apart from Pennllyn, the whole of Wales, as they do in Denmark, as they do in Belgium, as they do in Holland, the whole of Wales can be cable ploughed. And that's what we've called for at the Plaid Cymru conference, is that we look at cable ploughing, that we use undergrounding as a viable option rather than the carbon sink of using concrete and steel. We don't need to have that technology anymore. That's over 75 years old and more, and yet we have an alternative. Let's use that alternative for the benefit of the people of Carmarthenshire.
Yeah, I think, listen, you're talking to a politician in an election period. Of course, we're going to be in favour and against everything, that we need to be. I think we're probably underestimating alternative technologies. For example, floating offshore wind. Now, where I currently represent in South Pembrokeshire, there is a potential for a colossal offshore development in the Celtic Sea, which would completely swamp anything that we are capable of producing on land. And we do so without any damage to the environment, without any damage to the landscape, minimal interruption for shipping, I'm told, and the ability to create thousands of jobs in Neath Talbot and in Milford Haven, the Port of Milford Haven. And so for me, it just seems we can achieve all of the renewable objectives that we need and want to, but without causing lasting and irreparable damage to areas like this. So I have to say I was in favour of the sort of moratorium on onshore wind, which was a UK government position, and I'm still minded towards that, not because I want to be, tin-eared about our increasing need to rely on renewables, but because I think there's probably a better way of doing that. Marine renewables as well as floating offshore wind seems to me to be where we should be putting our attention and our money.